Day 13 of the search for the 3 Israeli teenagers as the IDF arrests 17 Palestinians overnight and Israeli warplanes pound the Gaza Strip in retaliation for rocket fire. Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki rejects calls to form a unified government as dozens are killed in a strike reportedly carried out by the Syrian Air Force. And Libyans go to the polls to elect a new national parliament despite the worst violence in the country since 2011. Welcome back to the news today. This is the Daily Debate. Well, while analysts say that the recent victories in western Iraq by the jihadists from the group known as the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, are not about to lead to the downfall of the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, the unexpected success of these Sunni fighters is having a ripple effect across the region, imperiling several other areas, among them Jordan. Well, so how dangerous is the threat to the region? Well, joining me to debate the topic is Dr. Motti Kedar, director at the Center for Middle East and Islamic Studies at Bar-Ilan University, and Dr. Anat Hochberg-Marom, an expert on terrorism and terrorism marketing. Well, thank you both for joining us here today and taking part in today's debate. Well, Dr. Kedar, I'll start with you here. You've been following, obviously, the advance of these militants closely, as have many across the world. Do you see, and let's start with the main question right now, do you see an imminent threat to the sovereignty of Jordan?
Well, we should take them by the face value of what they say. We don't have the luxury of not to believe them, because so far they did what they mean and they mean what they do. So they talk about the Levant, as you say in their name, the Sham. The Levant includes, lo and behold, Lebanon as well, and Jordan as well, and Israel also. So I take them seriously that they mean that they are the Islamic State of Iraq and the whole Levant, including Jordan.
But do they have the power to actually pursue that goal of theirs?
Definitely, and so far they are tremendously successful. Okay, not 100%, but whatever they wanted, they took over. They wanted the Western Iraq, they have it. They wanted Mosul, they have it. They wanted to establish a state, Islamic State in Syria, at least from Aleppo to the east, they already have it. Now they are erasing the borders, because now the Islamic State, which they established between Aleppo and almost Baghdad, actually you can cross the border between Iraq and Syria back and forth with no restriction. So definitely they do what they mean, and they do it very, very zealously, and whenever they have great tactics of putting all the power on a small spot, and they take it over and they go to the next spot. Put all the power on this one spot and take it over and they go forward. This is the best tactics, actually based on the Islamic history as well. And we definitely have to take them seriously if they say that they are marching to Jordan, and that's what they say.
Dr. Hochberg-Marom, some could argue that some of these targets that have already been taken in these areas that have been conquered may have been soft targets. These are national lines that have been blurred already for years to come, for previous years here now. Iraq had a weak presence relatively in the northern part of their country. The military basically dropped and ran at the first sign of threat from these militants across the border coming out of Syria, another basically no man's land. Do you agree with that sentiment that right now it seems that they have all the momentum and that nothing can stand in their way?
I do agree with this argument, and we have to take into consideration the ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra, which is the Al-Qaeda in Syria. They just made a unification. They just united with each other, although reunited. Sorry, thank you. And it is a big threat to the whole area. So I do agree with your argument, and I think this is like the deterioration that we see for the last week, for the last 2 weeks. It's something that we could expect or predict in advance, but the time it takes to overthrow or to topple Maliki, it's too serious to sit aside and to wait. It's too dangerous to sit aside and wait for something to happen, because it's going to be worse. It's going to be a lot more threats, not only to the Arab governments in the area, also for the West.
Do you believe that ISIL is here to stay in the Middle East?
It depends. I mean, it depends. Not only beliefs over here, not only expectations. We have to see that by daily, by hourly, using just to follow what's going on.
Well, who would stop them at this point is, I guess, the follow-up question to that. Certainly the Iraqi army doesn't seem to be equipped or perhaps even willing to step in and oust them from this country. Everyone else, the West, the United States, has seemed very reluctant. Who would stop them? Who would now oust them from these areas?
This is the question. If there is any body, or any country, any force, any power that can hold them, that can just stop their way of attacking all the Iraqi cities, and now at present what we see today in Jordan, it is a threat that I think, as I see it from my point of view, from Al-Qaeda point of view, if I just make to be accurate, I think there is nobody that can stop them right away, but I mean, it has to be analyzed very, very accurately.
Professor Kedar, Dr. Kedar, your
Well, I think that the only power which is willing and ready to do it is Iran. They will do it in no time, because actually the war today is about Sunni and Shia rift, which already tears the Islamic world for 14 centuries. The Iranians cannot wait anymore. To do it, of course, they need the consent of the world, because they will not invade Iraq and then maybe Syria as well.
They already have troops on the ground in Iraq. They already have generals running the scene.
But, you know, you don't see yet the divisions, the armored divisions, which are needed to really extract this organization from the roots. So,
if they were invited, though, by the central government, or what remains of the central government in Baghdad, who in the international community would oppose such a move?
Nobody will oppose, because everybody will say, oh wow, great, let them do the job. Although we don't say anything about this, but everybody will be more than happy to see the Iranians trying to fight those jihadists with the machine guns on the pickup cars which they have. Nobody really wants to get into the range of the fire.
Well, speaking of these jihadists, can you give us some background now, and try to explain what the difference is between the ISIS or ISIL and Jabhat al-Nusra, for example, in Syria?
Well, Jabhat al-Nusra is actually a Syrian organization. Of course, it has some foreigners who came to help them, but it is Syrian. It restricts itself to Syria, while the ISIL was established as the Islamic State of Iraq in 2004 later by Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, who was the Al-Qaeda representative in Iraq. Later, he became too vicious and too cruel that Al-Qaeda tried to get rid of him, or to disassociate itself from him. But what happened in the last months actually brought Ayman al-Zawahiri, the leader of Al-Qaeda, to really denounce them and to cut all the ties with them, because they became much worse than Al-Qaeda. I mean, Al-Qaeda today are moderate compared to the ISIL. And actually what you see, all the pictures and the videos which they produce actually show that these people have no restriction at all. They would kill anybody. Thousands of people so far were murdered in cold blood when they took them over, like in Mosul.
Have there been incidents where they've been welcomed into certain Sunni enclaves, Sunni towns?
Depends in what time. In Mosul, the battle of Mosul started in the morning, like almost 20 days ago, with a combination of Daesh, means the ISIL, and some 6 local militias. Towards the evening, they started to shoot each other. Why? Because the Islamic State of Iraq and Levant demanded that they all swear allegiance to ISIL, and they didn't have this in mind. To fight together is one thing, yet to give them weapons and to give the loyalty to them, it's something totally different. And on this, they fought each other, and some were killed.
We have to understand here the ISIL and ISIS is against anybody who does not interpret the Islam as they do. Okay, so everything they have harsh interpretation of the Sharia law based on the 7th century, and whoever he doesn't know if it's Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, Christian, whoever it is, it does not believe as they do believe. so they can kill him.
And there have been reports already of Indian workers who are Hindu being held while the Muslims were released. Some examples of what you're saying there. Do you believe? I know that there have been reports that they're working to, in a way, win the hearts and minds of some of the people in the areas that they're conquering. They're not doing this completely as conquerors. Are there elements that exist within Jordan, per se, that would support them, that perhaps would welcome them?
Sure. These are the Salafists. Although the vast majority of Jordanians do not aspire to associate to Al-Qaeda, there are Salafists are on the rise, which means there are a relatively small number of Salafists in Jordan, but still this is a very brutal character of the Islam, of the Islamism, which means, you know, the interpretation could be harsh and could be very strict, but to take it to the extreme means that we have no limits. We can kill anybody, anytime, although it could be also our brothers or anybody from the family, either you know, from our country as well.
Last Friday, in the town of Ma'an, in the southern part of Jordan, there was an open demonstration for the ISIL with black flags and signs in the width of the street that Ma'an, the Jordanian Fallujah, supports the ISIL. And the people went there without any cover on their faces. We can see some
images here as well of this protest.
Definitely, this is the demonstration. People are walking around with open faces. They are not afraid of any mukhabarat, any intelligence, Jordanian intelligence. They are not afraid of the local authorities in Jordan. And this is the important issue here, that for those people, the state doesn't exist anymore. And for them, Jordan is the next victim of ISIL. And you know what? The next will be us, because after Jordan, who is there into the west from Jordan? Israel. And whoever talks today or talks ever about getting out of the Jordan Valley will have to face these people 15 kilometers from the sea in Kalkilia, maybe.
We have to understand here that the Jordan is a monarchy. It's the first time that the ISIL is against monarchy, which means they're against a pro-Western country. But as compared to Syria and Iraq, it's absolutely different people. They against the monarchy, they're against the kingdom, they're against the king itself, Abdallah, because he's supported by the West. And
according to the Quran, kingdom belongs only to Allah. Not to a human being. So how can this man name himself a king?
They're against the sovereignty of people, and they want to establish the sovereignty of God, which means based on the Sharia law, based from the 7th century, and it's absolutely, you know, extreme if we go and see what's going on today in the Middle East.
Well, the Jordanian military is likely more organized than what we've seen take place in Iraq. Not as much of a pushover, especially in the border regions there. I can imagine they're strengthening their positions there now. Do you think that in a scenario where they do cross the border and enter Jordan, would we be more likely to see any kind of Western response, perhaps a stronger American backing for Jordanian sovereignty than we've seen in Iraq?
It is difficult to predict. I wouldn't go on prediction right now, but what I say is they have the back of the West, because Jordan is pro-Western, period. On the other hand, I'm not sure about the U.S. Government activity in the Middle East, because they just, you know, just to take all consideration into this situation, we have to be very cautious here.
Well, I wouldn't overrule totally the possibility that Israel.
I was about to ask you that. What scenario could Israel step in now?
Israel definitely views Jordan as a buffer. Buffer zone between us and the mayhem in Iraq and Iran, whatever is behind them, Afghanistan, don't forget also. So maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe Israel will decide that if bad comes to worse and those invade Jordan and the Iranian army fails in defending the Jordanian army fails in defending Jordan, maybe Israel will decide that this is the time to put its foot on the boots, on the ground in Jordan, and maybe fight for Israel on Jordanian soil.
Perhaps a dangerous move as well, though, may shore up the allegiances between the Sunnis if Israel were to step in, similar to the risk perhaps of a U.S. drone strike right now, would be seen as just the Shiites in the U.S.
Well, I predict that if Israel would be the last resort of the king, he would take the Israelis, no doubt.
I also predict that the global jihad is going to be strengthened, to be tougher, to be a lot, like it's a global security threat. It's not only the Middle East. It's not only theirs problem, but ours in Israel problem.
What about the recruitment of foreigners? Is this likely to just pick up now with the momentum of the gains they've already made?
Actually, this is the global jihad in Syria, which just was, at the beginning of all this chaos. It was a magnet. It is a magnet because Al-Qaeda is a game changer, but it's a huge threat. So foreigners, thousands of foreigners come from all over the world, from Asia, from Europe, also from the US and the Middle East, the Arab world, and then also from Jordan. There are 2,000 foreigners, Jordanians, that came over to Syria war, and if I'm not wrong, so 250 died in this battle.
Well, it sounds from both of you that this likely isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Thank you very much.
What happens,
unfortunately, out of time
here. Jihadi adrenaline today becomes more and more active in this region.
Thank you very much, Dr. Motti Kedar and Dr. Anat Hochberg-Marom. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure.
And that wraps up our daily debate. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with One on One.